Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. C. Wells coming at you. And it is time for the championship game, man. The moment, the game, everything this whole season been building to, the front door to get to the championship, to get to the Celebration Bowl is here. We started in week 0, man. We went through a rocky road, ups and downs, a lot of drama, a lot of controversy, a lot of chaos, a lot of fun. But we are coming up to the final game of the season, basically, before the Celebration Bowl, and we have Prairie View A&M representing the West Division at 6-5, 6-2 in conference against the Florida A&M Rattlers, sitting at 10-1, 8-0 in the East Division. This game is in Tallahassee. Rattlers earned that berth by winning the most games in the league, and this game kicks off at 2 p.m. Central on ESPN2 on Saturday. So this is the time we are here. We're going to talk about this game, and we're going to look at both teams' path to this game, and what my predictions are. So before we do all of that, man, y'all can check out my socials. Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We making the march to 1200. That's the first step before we get to the 2K. We're going to try to get to 1200. So we're going to continue that march. I thank y'all if y'all have already subscribed. If you haven't, man, hit that button, please, and thank you. Don't forget to like the video, share it. Feel free to comment. Let me know who you think gonna win and why. You can even give me a score if that's what you want to do. And also hit that join button to become a member of the channel, or you can hit that super thanks. Or if you'd like to just support the show, you can go to the Cash App $SWAG Talk. Anything would be appreciated. So let's go ahead, man. There's no need for formalities. These two teams know each other well. They played already this season. And let's talk about how Prairie View got here. The Panthers had a more rocky, windy road than FAMU did. Prairie View opened up their season beating Texas Southern by a score of 37-34 in a game they had to come back from being down 34-17 to force overtime and won on a field goal in overtime. They lost to Abilene Christian 45-16. They lost to SMU 69-0. The game that probably was the most important win on their schedule was the Alcorn victory on September 23rd. They beat the Braves 23-20 on a last-second field goal. That game gave them the tiebreaker over Alcorn, which would ultimately be the difference in this. They lost to Grambling in the State Fair Classic 35-20. They beat Valley 31-12 at home. They lost to Houston Christian 30-0, and then they lost to FAMU on October 28th, 45-7. So that, at that point, it kind of looked like Prairie View was down and out. They were able to pick up a victory over Pine Bluff 38-14, which set up a big game for them against Southern. They lose that game. They have 3 conference losses, and they're probably out of the race. But they were able to come from behind against Southern, down 21-17 at the half to win this game 27-21. And then in another big game, this was a definitely win or go home game against Bama State. They won, they go to the championship. If they lose, they would need Alcorn to lose, and then need Grambling to lose. It was just going to be a crazy thing. But the Panthers pulled it out, 21-14. They actually led this game 21-7 before Alabama State scored a late touchdown. So they did what they needed to do. They've closed out the season on a 3-game winning streak. This is their first winning streak of the season. The other 3 wins were sandwiched around losses. So they were able to do what they needed to do to get where they needed to go. and that's ultimately what it comes down to. Um, Making it to the championship game is not necessarily for the prettiest team. It helps to win, win as many games as you can. It helps for you to look good. It helps for you to be dominant. But at the end of the day, it's about standing at the top of the pile. And Prairie View did that. The West Division is a madhouse. It's been that way for the last few years. And whoever survives is the team that's gonna make it there. But Prairie View, they did it, and now they have a chance to try to get back against FAMU. But FAMU is a tough team, man. They are a team who they 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 have basically been the best team in the SWAC all season. To me, there's no second guessing. There's no team that you could say, well, they were they were comparable to FAMU. No, FAMU has been the best team basically since week one, and they continue. They found ways to win games, and they won games in dominant fashion. They did what you would want a team to do, and that's win. And so they opened up their season defeating Jackson State by a score of 28-10. They would go on to lose their only game of the season against South Florida by a score of 38-24. And this game was fairly tight for a while. They had an opportunity to actually make some things happen in this game, but they just, they came up short. Um, they actually trailed this game by a score of 31-24 with 10:04 left in the fourth quarter before they gave up a big touchdown pass to kind of put the game out of reach. But they hung tight. They fought. They played a really good game in this game. Um, they actually outgained USF in this game. They had better yard per play average. Even with a poor rushing effort, they outplayed USF for stretches of the game. Um, but they were unable to make it happen when they needed it to happen. After that, they would bounce back with a they bounced back with a victory over West Florida, 31-10. This was a 3-3 game at the half because West Florida is a tough opponent, even though they're D2. But this was a 3-3 game at the half before FAMU kind of took control of this game and really wore down West Florida, which kind of showed the blueprint for FAMU this season. You know, kind of, you know, kind of feel out the other team for a minute. Maybe they can kind of hang in there with you. Then in the second half, you throw that knockout blow and you get the win. That's basically what they've been doing, and they followed that up with a 23-10 victory over Alabama State. They beat Valley 31-7. They beat Southern 26-19. They would beat Texas Southern 31-21, and then, like I said, they would beat Prairie View 45-7. They would close out their season beating Alabama A&M, 42-28 in a game that the Bulldogs had their opportunities, but FAMU closed the door on them. They beat Lincoln 28-0, and then they would beat Bethune-Cookman 24-7 to close out their regular season. Looking at both teams statistically, FAMU, they lead the SWAC in scoring offense at 30.3 points per game. They have scored 43 touchdowns on the season. Prairie View is actually averaging 20 points per game as an offense. They have 26 touchdowns. They have 27 touchdowns on the season. Defensively, FAMU leads the league in scoring defense with 14.3 point per game average. Prairie View is at 30.8 point per game average. That's number 10 in the league. These numbers are overall statistics. So these numbers are kind of skewed a little bit. We'll also take a look at the conference stats just to kind of maybe put it in a different perspective. But looking at these numbers overall, FAMU is fifth in the league in total offense at 369 yards per game. They average 6 yards per play. Prairie View is at 342 per game. They average 5.5 yards per play. In conference play, FAMU still leads the league in scoring offense at 31.3 points per game. Prairie View is sixth at 25.5 points per game. FAMU leads the league in scoring defense in conference play at 13.6 points per game. Prairie View allows 24.4, which is ninth. So they still defensively have not been great. In conference play, FAMU is fifth at 370 yards per game, average 6 yards per play. Prairie View is sixth at 370.9. They're basically tied. Prairie View averages 5.9 yards per game. Defensively, FAMU leads the league with 273 yards allowed per game, and they only allow 4.3 yards per play, which is the lowest number in the league. So their defense is very stingy. They allow 15 touchdowns, which is the second fewest. Prairie View, they are ranked number 10 in total defense at 362 yards per game and 5.8 yards per play. In conference play, Prairie View is third in rushing offense at 165 yards per game, 4.1 yards per carry. FAMU at 146 yards per game, 4.8 yards per carry. So if you look at the numbers in conference play, FAMU, their rushing attack was much better in conference play than it was out of conference by about 10 yards. They averaged 136 yards per game on the ground in overall. 4.4 yards per carry. Prairie View, 158 yards per game and 3.9 yards per carry. So we're going to stick with some of the conference numbers just to keep from jumping back and forth. Prairie View is sixth in passing offense at 205 yards per game. They complete 55% of their passes, and they have 1,641 yards, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. FAMU is third with 224 yards per game. 11 touchdowns, 14 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1,792 yards. Passing defense, FAMU is fifth. They allow 181 yards per game, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 1,450 yards for the opponents. The opponents only complete 51% of their passes. Prairie View, it struggles against the pass. 242 yards per game. They've given up 14 touchdowns with 5 interceptions, 1,937 yards total on the season. The opponents complete 61% of their passes, which is the third highest rate for opponents. They've had a tough time stopping the pass in conference play. FAMU is sixth in kickoff returns, averaging 18.6 yards per return. Prairie View eighth, 17.3. Both teams have great return guys. You have Riley returning kickoffs for FAMU. You have Brian Juice Jenkins returning punts and kicks for Prairie View. Jamari Sharif is the top return guy on punts for FAMU. There's an electric guy on both sides in this aspect, and I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those guys break something in this game. And in a game like this, your special teams are gonna be vital. And getting that extra yardage on returns can definitely help. FAMU averages 13.3 yards per punt return, which is second in the league. Prairie View averages 6.4 per game, which is 10th in the league. Also on special teams, FAMU, they have 20 touchbacks on the season, which is the most in the league. So you're gonna have a hard time to get that extra yardage on kick returns. FAMU is tops there. Prairie View is eighth with a 37.1 net average. They give up a decent amount of yards on returns. They only have 1 touchback on the season. Field goals, FAMU is 8 or 10 on the season for 80%. That leads the league. Prairie View is 10 or 15 for 66%. That is fifth in the league. FAMU is perfect on extra points in conference play, 30 for 30. Prairie View is third at 24 or 25 for 96%. Punting, FAMU is second in punting at a 42.4 average, 37.1 net average. Prairie View averages 39.6 with a 37.1 average. So that basically shows that Prairie View doesn't really give up a lot on punt returns. They lead the league in opponent punt return average at 0.6 yards per return. FAMU is at 1.9, which is fifth. So both teams do a good job of covering punts. That's gonna be interesting with both teams having guys who are very capable return men. Prairie View has allowed Uh, they've allowed 14 sacks in conference play. As an offense, FAMU 8. That's second and fourth, respectively. FAMU is second in the league in sacks with 22 in conference play. Prairie View is ninth with 18. Not a big difference, but overall defensively, FAMU defense is playing at a much better level than Prairie View is right now. Prairie View overall, they have 19 sacks overall. FAMU 34, so they only have one extra sack um, in non-conference play. Interceptions, FAMU is fourth with 8. They do have two returns for touchdowns, so if they get the ball in their hands, they're capable of taking it back. They average 13.9 yards per return. Prairie View, they have 5 interceptions on the season, and they have a pick six as well, and they average 15 yards per return. So they both teams can get that extra yardage, whether it's special teams or defense. They can find ways to make things happen. Um, First downs, FAMU averages 19.9 first downs per game, which is fourth in the league. Prairie View 18.3, which is seventh. Opponent first downs, FAMU 16.4 for the opponents, which is fourth. Prairie View is 18.4, which is ninth. Third down conversions, FAMU is first. FAMU is second at 39%. Prairie View leads the league in third down conversions at 40%. Opponent third downs Prairie View allows 32%, which is sixth in the league. FAMU is first with 25%. It's hard to drive the ball on FAMU. You have to kind of do it through the air because they don't allow anything on the ground. But they have a ball hawking secondary, and they have a front four that can get pressure, and those linebackers can make plays all over the place. Cheney, Major, those guys can definitely cause disruptive issues in the linebacking core. Dunn and Hunt, in on the front four, your secondary is loaded, so it's going to be a tough task for Prairie View to move the ball in this game. FAMU average is converting 63% on fourth downs. Prairie View 30%. That's fourth and 11th, respectively. FAMU opponents, they convert 45% on fourth down, which is fifth. Prairie View's opponents convert 63% on fourth down, which is 10th. Miscellaneous stats here. Penalties. FAMU is they have 68 penalties on the season, which is the third most in the league. They are the fourth most team with penalty yardage at 558, and they have the fourth most penalty yardage per game at 73.6. Prairie View has 46 penalties for 407 yards with a 50-yard average. So they have not been penalized a lot. They are the second fewest. They are the team with the second fewest amount of penalties on the season, and they have the fourth lowest penalty yardage. So they've been pretty good at staying out of bad situations on both sides of the ball. FAMU's opponents have 57 penalties on the season for 459 yards with a 57.4 average. That's seventh in the league. Prairie View's opponents, 44 penalties for 383 yards and a 47.9 yard average. So Prairie View are their opponents. They don't have a lot of penalties in their games. Red zone offense, FAMU is fourth in the league. They are 24 of 28 for 85%. They have 17 touchdowns in the red zone, 10 running and 7 passing. They're 7 of 8 on field goals, and they've only turned the ball over in the red zone two times, interception and a turnover on downs. Prairie View is 18 of 22 for 81% in the red zone. They have 14 touchdowns, 13 rushing and 1 passing. They're 4 of 5 on field goals, and they have 3 turnover on downs in the red zone. So as you can see, if Prairie View gets inside the 20, if they're going to score, it's on the ground. And this is a team that likes to run the ball first more than anything. So that makes a lot of sense. FAMU, they're not a team that runs it a lot, but they have big bruising backs, and their backs can get in the end zone, which is why they have more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns in the red zone. FAMU's opponents have only been in the red zone 18 times all season. They're 11 of 18. for 61%. They have 9 touchdowns allowed, 5 rushing, 4 passing. Their opponents are 2 of 5 on field goals, and FAMU has forced 4 turnovers in the red zone, 1 fumble, and 3 turnover on downs. Prairie View's opponents convert 86% in the red zone, 25 or 29. They have 17 touchdowns, 8 rushing, and 9 passing. Opponents are 8 of 11 on field goals, and they have 1 turnover on down in the red zone. So this obviously on paper, this game shapes up for FAMU because Prairie View has had an up and down season, and when you take it and put it only in conference games, the numbers look better. If you put in those non-conference games, Prairie View's numbers look worse because they basically got blown out in all 3 of their conference games. So to make it look a little bit better, you go with the conference numbers. But Prairie View offensively, they want to run the ball. They have the guys to run the ball. Amar Antoine has 491 yards on the season, 107 carries, averages 4.6 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns. Caleb Johnson, 90 carries, 413 yards. He averages 4.6 yards per carry with 1 touchdown. Jamarius Brooks, 54 carries, 298 yards, excuse me. He lost 8 yards on the season. 5.4 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. Also, Connor Wisham has 215 yards and 2 touchdowns on 38 carries. Trezon Connolly, 106 carries at quarterback, 182 yards net, 1.7 yard average with 4 touchdowns. So he is a threat to run the ball. He's run the ball a good bit this season, but still not as much as last season. He's tried to focus more on passing the ball. On this season, he's 127 to 229, 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 1,972 yards on the season. Completes 55% of his passes. Prairie View does like to go deep. Their top guys all average over 15 yards per catch. Shamar Savage averages 22.4 yards per catch, 19 catches, 426 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Trajan Spiller, 22 catches, 369 yards, 5 touchdowns. He averages 16 yards per catch. Brian Jenkins, 20 catches, 364 yards. He averages 18 yards per catch. Jaquan Bloomfield, 11 catches for 242 yards, averages 22 yards per catch. Also, Chris Heron averages 16 yards per catch. He has 11 catches for 176 yards. And Christopher Simmons has 14 catches for 135 yards. Defensively, they're led by Keyshawn Johnson with 79 tackles. Derek Ray has 10 tackles for loss. And he also leads the defense with 4 sacks. DeJuan Lewis leads the team with 2 interceptions. He also has 5 pass breakups. Presley and Ray each have 3 quarterback hurries. Franklin has 2 fumble recoveries. Lewis has 2 forced fumbles. Ray has blocked the kick, and they have not recorded a safety. Special teams, Efren Jasso has punted 50 times for 1,975 yards, 39.5 yard average with a long of 59. They have had 1 punt block this season. As a team, they're 11 of 19 on field goals. They've had 2 kicks blocked. Their long is 50. They're 3 of 6 from 40 to 49 yards and 1 for 1 from 50 plus. So they're 4 for 7 beyond 40 yards, which is very good. This team does have guys who can make those field goals from distance. And like I said, Brian Jenkins is the top return guy. He averages 27 yards per kick return with a long of 60, and he averages 4 yards per punt return with a long of 12. He's a guy who can still, who can and will break one from time to time. So you definitely have to be aware of where he is. When you look at the Rattlers, they have a 3-headed monster at running back. Terrell Jennings leads that group with 84 carries for 492 yards and 7 touchdowns. He averages 5.9 yards per carry. Kelvin Dean, 67 carries, 359 yards, also 5.4 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. Jaquez Yant, 81 carries, 317 yards, 3.9 yards per carry and 6 touchdowns. Leland Wilholt has 26 carries for 149 yards, averages 5.7 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. So, they can go 4 deep in that backfield. They don't hesitate to shuffle those guys around, and any one of those guys could have a big game. They don't. Like I said, they don't really lean on the running attack a lot, but they will. I think they run the ball more this season than they have in previous years, and that bodes well for their offense. Jeremy Musa is 182 of 317 passing, 2,416 yards, 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, completing 57% of his passes. He has from time to time been off target, but when he's on, the offense can definitely click. Um, Sometimes he gets a little off target, and that can throw the continuity of the offense out of rhythm for a little while. But he always finds a way to make those plays when they need it. And they have a deep group of guys to throw the ball to. This season they have 7 guys with double-digit receptions. They're led by Jamari Reed with 44 receptions. He has 434 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marcus Riley, 27 catches, 438 yards and 4 touchdowns. Nicholas Dixon, 18 catches, 314 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jamari Gassett, 23 catches, 310 yards and 3 touchdowns. When you need a guy to make that big catch, whether it's a touchdown or a late third down conversion, Gassett has been that guy for good portions of the season. He scored some key touchdowns for the Rattlers this season. Kamari Young at tight end has been a big threat for them. He has 20 catches for 303 yards and 1 touchdown. Jeremiah Pruitt, 11 catches, 176 yards and a touchdown. And David Manigo, 11 catches for 154 yards on the season. And that dark cloud defense, they make it tough for you to do anything with the ball. The reigning defensive player of the year, Isaiah Major, has 94 tackles to lead the team. Johnny Chaney has 60. He's an all-conference guy as well. Anthony Dunn has had a really good season. He has 11 tackles for loss, Major 11 and a half. Gentle Hunt has 10. Johnny Chaney has 7 sacks. Dunn leads the team with 8 sacks on the season, 4.5 sacks for Hunt. Smith has 3.5. Chaney with 3. Eric Smith leads the defense with 3 interceptions. He also has 8 pass breakups. Kendall Bowler has 13. Both of those guys are all conference guys. This secondary is very tough. Dunn has 8 quarterback hurries. Alan Smith has 2 fumble recoveries, and they have a multitude of guys with a forced fumble. They've blocked 2 kicks. Jenkins and Tevin Griffey have both blocked kicks. They haven't recorded a safety, but this defense does it all. They make it tough for you to run the ball. It's tough to pass the ball because they get great pressure with their front 4, and the secondary is more than capable of locking guys down. They average 43.6 yards per punt. Will Hoyt has a 43.6 yard average with 62 as his long. He has 12 punts of 50+ yards. They have had 1 punt blocked, but they also blocked the punt. Cameron Gillis, first team all conference kicker, 10 of 12 on field goals, 83%. He's perfect on extra points. He has a longer 44. He's 2 of 3 from 40+. 3 for 4 from 30 to 39 yards, 5 of 5 from inside 29 yards. Has had 2 kicks blocked though this season, so that's something to be aware of. And like I said, the return game is spectacular. Shareed averages 14 yards per return with a longer 50. Gassett only has 4 returns on the season, but he has a 12-yard average. He has a 39-yard return as his long, so definitely a guy who, if he needs to do it, he can do it. With kickoff returns, Riley has 1 touchdown, a 96-yard return in the Jackson State game. He has a 30-yard average. Again, guy who can break one at any time. Like I say, the first time these 2 teams played, it was 45-7. FAMU this game was close for a little while. It wasn't necessarily, I think FAMU had control of this game for the most part, but this game was a 14-7 game in the mid portions of the second quarter before FAMU got a late touchdown before the half to go in up 21-7. After that, the Rattlers just kind of took over, so they would ultimately score 24 points in the second half to win this game. And I think that I'm not quite. I don't think the score is going to get that bad. The point spread I think is 15. I do think the Rattlers would cover that. I think this is another one of those FAMU type of games. Prairie View, they're going to try to run the ball. Try to shorten the game a little bit. Take some of the pressure off their defense. They want to keep FAMU on in defense on the field, keep their defense off the field, because their defense has given up big plays, especially through the air. You don't want to put your defense in that kind of position. Um, especially playing on the road. This place is gonna be crazy. It's probably gonna be sold out if it isn't already. Bragg is a tough place to play. You don't really get out of there alive, so it's gonna be tough for Prairie View. Prairie View's gonna have to bring their A game on both sides of the ball. They're gonna have to not turn the ball over, and they're gonna have to make some stops on defense. They're gonna have to get FAMU behind the chains, and this is all stuff that every team needs to do. But in a game like this where FAMU is the better team, I think they have a bigger margin for error. I think they're locked in because they had to kind of navigate those last few weeks knowing that they've already won the division. So they kind of not, they've been locked in, but they ain't been really locked in. So that now I think knowing that this is a championship game, this is a chance to win their first championship in quite some time in their first SWAC championship and make their first trip to the Celebration Bowl. I think you're going to see a very focused Rattler team, and when you see that, it's tough for a team to beat them. Prairie View, they're going to be locked in as well, but I think that they have to play an A+ game to win this game, and I don't really think that's going to happen. So I think this score is going to be FAMU. I'm going to say 31-10. I think Prairie View again plays it close in the first half, but FAMU second half team, they tend to lock you down and make the big plays, and I think that's going to happen again. So I think the Rattlers win this game by a score 31-10, and they go on to Atlanta to play Howard in the Celebration Bowl, which I do think the Rattlers are going to win that game as well, which we'll talk about when we get there, depending on which team makes it. But that's going to do it for today's show, man. I thank y'all for tuning in and rocking with us. SWAC Smoke coming at you tomorrow, live 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back on Sunday to recap this game, and then we'll go from there. So with that being said, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Well signing out, and I'm going to catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.